Welcome back, everyone, to the second week in the Broadband Breakthrough Infrastructure Deployment Program. Happy to welcome you all. Bill Coleman was saying that really the survey element of this planning process is really one of the key elements of your work that you'll be doing in this program. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what that surveying process entails. So I've got on here, I've got the cover slide that explains also an overview of what I'm going to be covering. And that is networking and communications involved in that survey process, the design, which I'll take you through what the survey entails, a little bit about the sampling and the distribution involved in the survey project and what we plan to do in the coming weeks in terms of coverage and sort of calibrating how you must continue to do your engagement locally in order to get a really good spread of responses and just voices that really represent your entire county, not just residents, but also businesses, ag entities, farms, and public buildings, what a lot of broadband folks call community anchor institutions. Okay, and then we'll just sort of talk about the timeline involved as well and the work to be done. And so really, before you even launch the survey or even look at the design, you really just need to kind of think of your network, right? A lot of really effective surveying happens with a meaningful, intentional distribution plan. Those who really can help you provide great input on that survey are going to be organizations and groups that are influential to all types of folks and businesses, etc. So people who can represent the geographic area and the population to be surveyed, those who are going to also act on the results of the survey, and groups which can contribute resources needed in conducting the survey, but also the project. Don't forget media professionals who can also help disseminate the information and disseminate the survey link or explain to people how to access the survey, especially if they don't have access to the internet. They won't be able to fill out an online survey if they don't have access, but there are other ways such as accessing a paper copy at certain locations or calling a number to get somebody to administer the survey over the phone. And don't forget those service and social organizations that can help the distribution, but also provide volunteers who may be, for example, able to do some canvassing as well as some data entry. So thinking about maybe those high school seniors or high schoolers or those who are young professionals who want to build their resume and engaging in a community survey, doing data entry, etc. All of those things could really beef up a resume of a young professional that shows that they have learned those skills. And so I filled a few ideas out for you. If you have a housing authority in your county, you definitely want to include them from the very beginning. You want to include your farmers from the very beginning as well. That is going to be really key. You don't want to surprise a farmer just a few weeks before build out, trying to see if they can sign an easement agreement or something when they never really had an opportunity to speak to those who are getting plans developed a year in advance, for example. So where you are right now and kicking off the surveying and the plans, you should think of engaging all of the groups that will be impacted, and farmers include that. Health department, definitely the public libraries for various reasons as well, and schools. And we just always think of those public entities and those community-based organizations as really being important stakeholders in the process because they're going to even be able to act on the results of the survey to possibly leverage some resources or some funding opportunities that are unique for them. And so moving on from just talking about sort of the engagement and setting the stage for meaningful distribution, when we get into the design, there are a few things we're going to need from you before we launch your countywide survey. We will want you to provide some feedback on the introductory survey text. We will want you to provide a logo. And I'm going to go ahead and test drive the survey for you to let you know what's on it. When you get into your breakout rooms today, you will be working towards getting that text down. You're going to be deciding who is the point of contact if people have questions about the survey or they want to request a paper copy or request a over the phone surveying, then they know what number to call. And so each team is going to get a unique survey URL and a short URL, as well as a paper version. And you're going to, besides getting back to me on some of those design aspects of the survey, you're going to work to do some marketing materials. And I've got some slides here following my section on the responses that we need for the survey that will really that are going to give you some messaging that you can use when you're doing communications. And so I'll wait until then, but really the idea is to have different forms of marketing materials, such as little hook sentences in social media, a press release, or points you would cover in a radio interview, etc. And so let's move on, and I'll be test driving the base survey here pretty soon. And so want to just explain that you have the opportunity to do a random sample. That does entail a little bit of resources that you would need to contribute, because when you see the population of your county and the corresponding sample size, those are the responses, the random samples that need to be generated. And so if you think about, for example, if you were to work with an organization that has a list of addresses of all of the households in your county, for example, then you would want to generate a random sample. And of course, we can do that for you as well. Generate a random sample of, for example, Clinton County with a population of 36,793. You'd have a sample size of 381. That's 381 stamps, for example, that you would use for mailing. So those costs really add up, not to mention the printing costs of sending out the survey or the flyer wherein they could use the information to log on and take the online survey. And so also want to speak to the other types of sampling that we do every time with this. When you launch your survey, that is just going to be convenience sampling. Those who have the most ease in accessing the survey and filling out the survey, those are going to be your initial respondents. And by pushing out those surveys and the link and such into the different channels, the networks that already exist, the organizations that usually help with these types of things, that is all convenience sampling. And really what we are hoping to do for you is, once you've launched the survey, we will start to let you know what your coverage looks like. What are those more quiet areas of your county? Who's not answering the survey? Where are they? And really get you to generate like a target list of folks and organizations that you need to then reach out to. And your team is going to be having those discussions on a weekly basis. And those will be, in those second part of those sessions where we do those breakout rooms, I'll be going through, visiting you all in your breakout rooms and giving you a representation of what that coverage looks like so that you can generate those lists, but then also divide up the responsibility so that there's not just one person constantly trying to get the survey out in various places every week, but that, different team members are kicking in some time. And also, when we go back to that discussion about your distribution and your distribution plan and your networks and the groups that you're going to be engaging with to do the survey distribution, that really is another layer or another sort of outer circle of your broadband planning group. But this is another sort of group that your team expands into. And perhaps when you're doing that, you're really actually getting to hear from folks who wish they were a part of the planning, and you will find that your team will build a little bit even just with the survey work you're doing, and that's fine. There is no max number of team members that you can have on your broadband planning team. And so you can feel free to get them to join. And of course, they'd be receiving the communications and things and seeing the progress of your team. That's always great to get more people involved. And when they feel like they're involved, then, they're going to kick in some time and help your distribution. And so, back to this idea of the sampling and speaking to the statistical validity, another way besides doing a random sample that you could speak to statistical validity of your survey results is if you want to collect demographic information. And if that demographic information collected with your survey, the survey responses represent your population or is comparable proportionally to your population in terms of demographics, that also speaks to statistical validity. But at any rate, when you are able to show that you have great coverage and that you've really touched every community or main community in your county, and that you've really included a large swath of different types of community-based organizations, farms, businesses, and residential areas in the county, you really can say that coverage was done. Shabika generates a nice map for you, and she really does a great job. And that map is another way, if you have that map in your grant narratives, for example, and your project proposals, for example, that does show that you really made a meaningful effort in your convenience and cluster sampling, and that coverage was widespread, didn't really leave anybody out. And so you can speak to community sentiment or countywide sentiment pretty well. Just some other points just to remember. So just a list in your distribution that you can use. Remember that distribution networks are representative of your population. The email messaging can be used for the paper versions cover letter as well. And you will want to have flyers. I think you could do a QR code, though we really want people to take the speed test portion of the survey. Really, we want people to take the survey from their local internet connection. And while they can do that from their phone at home, making sure that they're on their local internet connection and not their cellular connection, a QR code might, you're going to have to have that messaging with the QR code, and make sure people aren't just filling that out while they're on their cellular reception anywhere in the community. It's best to be at the local address that you are at when you're taking the survey, so that your survey speed test is meaningful and can be counted as representative of how good the infrastructure is. Consider a press release, consider those local radio interviews, consider the phone number to call for the administered survey, and include locations such as your library. And then lastly, idea here, if you've got events and expos going on during the next 2 months, why not also use that time to get the word out for the survey? And so honestly, I think probably the best thing to do, aside, pushing out information via those different networks, is those flyers with like a web address, right? That short URL where people can take home the flyer, and right on the top of the flyer, it says, take this home. It'll include a speed test, and then that flyer can really do what it's supposed to do if people are in person. And so because of that, I give you some messaging here that you can use. Please take this survey using your local internet connection, close to a router, not your cellular connection or hotspot. You'll be asked which internet service provider you use. And then when you do give them the speed test, you explain to them why that is so important. Really, the messaging should always kind of explain to folks why it's so important that they fill out that survey. And then, in conversation, whether it's with the interviews on the radio or within a newspaper article or on social media or whatever, you might want to invoke some of these benefits of broadband and have ideas about talking about sort of the larger picture of why are we doing this? Why are we doing this survey? We're trying to address a problem here around broadband access for a number of households and businesses and institutions in our county. Why would you want to participate? Why is this so important? We're future-proofing our county in terms of quality of life, education, telehealth, and really speaking to the economic impact of rural broadband and agriculture, right? The access to broadband improves decision-making, access to market information, production, etc. And just here's like another sort of model of a flyer you could use. And the timeline that you could also use. These are just sort of steps to consider. And so you'll use that in your breakouts. We've got a worksheet here that kind of explains to you what you need to get done. And so you're going to email me that intro language, your logo. I've got your ISPs already for your counties, and so I'll be able to get that in to your survey. You'll get a unique URL for your survey. Very happy to meet with the counties in the coming week as well. If you want to have just a one-on-one with me, we can take a look. You can actually, touch and test drive your unique survey for your county and have the final say before you launch. But now I'd like to really take you through what the base survey looks like so that you have an idea of what we're trying to collect. And so let me get back to the beginning here, because that's where we want to start. Luckily, when I start this survey, of course, you get past this suggested text for the introduction, including contact information that you'll need to provide. They ask the type of property. And so you can see that with each question, with each type of property that they'll ask, there's conditional questions that will appear, especially for farm, also community, public building. And so I'm checking all of these because I want those questions to appear so you can see those. And information that we collect about addresses and emails is really essential. And we explain here why that's important. And they have the opportunity to withhold letting you share the information with anyone else but within your planning group, so that they feel that their privacy has been taken into a consideration as well. And so what we see is that folks are fine to share addresses most of the time. I think they get the idea that without knowing what the address is and what the speed test data is and some of the other answers to these survey questions, you're just not going to be able to get a good idea of what the county needs. So we see actually most people are providing the addresses when they take the survey. When they select public or building or community building, we want an additional description of the facility. We want to know if it's a hospital, library, or school. That's just going to help you be able to know who's been covered and who hasn't, so that we can, do further outreach as the weeks go by to key institutions in your county that will need to have good access to the broadband infrastructure going forward. If they selected farm, we want to understand more about their role with that farm. Are they a landowner, operator, tenant, etc.? We ask about the access. You see, I've selected all those different types. They have no access at all. They only have cellular or hotspot, or they have the fixed internet at the property. So let's say folks have both and they'll select both of these, or maybe they have neither. So they'll just select, I do not have any internet service at this property. There are a lot of questions that will appear if they've selected this first one, because we want to understand what the quality is. And of course, if they have not selected this and they've only selected this one or this one, or this one, they won't have an opportunity to fill out a speed test, because we are only really wanting to gauge what the fixed internet service, what that broadband infrastructure is doing. Now, we do have a speed test that also just speaks to if they have a cellular connection, because we find in the most rural areas of Illinois that people are still interested in that cellular reception, because we have places that have no cellular reception at all, no internet connection or infrastructure, as well as no cellular reception. And so we still want to be able to let people talk about that. And counties also want to know, where is there just nothing at all? Because they might really want to prioritize infrastructure investment in places that just have no connectivity at all, whether it be with fiber, fixed wireless, or whatever, or a cellular signal. I'm just going to select all of these, because questions even about not having access to the internet and why appear with different selections. So then we have questions around devices. What types of devices are you using? And we let them tell us how many are being used at their location. So that's going to be a big number if it's a school. If it's a household and they just have a single smartphone or something, and maybe they have a few smartphones, but they don't have anything else, that tells us something as well, as that they're, definitely not having proper access to devices, which indicates that they are in the digital divide, and they are in need of getting better access, not just in terms of infrastructure, but appropriate devices. And so we have fixed and cellular questions around how well it supports connectivity needs for different functions if you're an ag business. And so they are able to let us know, from excellent to poor, how the internet connection that they have supports those needs in terms of business functions such as accounting, marketing, purchasing, payroll, or precision ag functions such as the equipment monitoring, the data gathering, the auto guidance, et cetera, that's going on in terms of production, et cetera. And also that family life there on the farm, right? What that connectivity does to support family life. Same thing for their cell service. And the voice services and data services as well. And then we have a specific precision ag tech question where we really want to know, like, what is your current use as well as what do you intend to use? We think it would be important, especially in this broadband breakthrough program where we focus on, counties that are high producing counties for soy or corn, for you to be able to say, yeah, we surveyed farmers, and we know that if we were able to invest in broadband infrastructure across the county, that they would further take advantage of precision ag tech in terms of these different types of technologies, which we know would increase production. There's some research, and of course you'll be able to hear more about that next week. And another broadband breakthrough question about asking if they're willing to host wireless internet equipment on their property. And the only thing I will say about this is not those wind turbines or anything, but we know that, if there's a willingness for people to take stock of vertical assets and then lend to that build out, that could be a way to just have a more cost-effective investment in terms of infrastructure. We ask your primary internet provider. Again, each county, we know the ISPs that are serving your county currently, and we have an updated list for each county in your unique surveys. People can select their ISP if they've got one. They can also say list another one if it's not listed, or they can say they don't know. Now, this question appears if they say they have access to fixed internet. And so, but just in case they might have said they do and they don't, then here's another way that we catch it, is they say they don't have one. So there's that. How often do you have to resort to your cellular data plan or another provider when your primary internet connection is not working? It's just definitely, this is a reliability question. And we also have what speeds have been promised to you by your provider. We want to know that as well. And we can kind of then gauge what providers are promising folks in your area. And then here's a real nice quality question around affordability, speed, and reliability. And so this is a satisfaction measurement. So folks can say if they are extremely dissatisfied all the way to extremely satisfied with that fixed internet connection. And then we have the speed tests for both. And then this question appears if they have marked that they do not have access to any internet connection, whether fixed or cellular. And so we want to know why. So they're able to say that they don't desire it or they feel like they don't need it. Maybe they just do not have access to any infrastructure at all. It's an affordability issue. They don't feel any services are good enough for them to have that connectivity, or they know it's just not reliable enough, and they can give another reason as well. We want to know for 100 by 20, which really puts you out of being unserved or underserved. We want to know how much people are willing to pay for that level of connectivity. The private partners for folks are going to want to know that. So that's good information for them to know. And we want to know what's going on in households that are connected. We want to, whether they have the connectivity or not, we want to know if what they're currently doing or hope to be doing with their connectivity. And so there's just a repertoire of types of use: accessing government information, cloud-based services with the storage, file storage, communication such as email, being able to do video calls, etc., online platforms, education, workforce training or online certifications, entertainment, healthcare information and services, operating a home business, use of smart devices for surveillance or security, remote working from home, telecommuting, online banking and financial management, and online shopping. And then we have, of course, this other that they can write in as well. And so then they explain, I'm currently doing this. I hope to do this. I have no interest in doing this. This is just another way of saying what folks would do with the infrastructure. it's important to kind of know that and understand what it's going to be used for. I have seen some grant opportunities in the past speak to that a little bit, where if folks are able to say, yeah, we've surveyed our community or our county, and we know that people are really hoping to utilize the infrastructure, for telehealth, for example, that really does strengthen your narrative and your justification. Do you feel that there is a sufficient amount of internet service providers at your location? We want to know if you feel like there are no choices, or if you feel like there's a sufficient amount of choices. And we have seen a little bit of a correlation between, if there are many choices, we see the speeds being a little bit more competitive, and that makes sense, because if people are kind of stuck with just one or two choices, then they might not really get a great service. There's not enough of a incentive there for an ISP to really try to retain customers, because they know that their competition is almost non-existent, and so they could not feel like they have to be providing the best service, or they might not be motivated to provide that best service. I'm trying to explain it in terms of, it might not be intended, but we would see that doesn't come up for them or something. And then this very meaningful question at the end of the survey about, tell us your broadband story. And so this gives people an opportunity to express what the lack of access has done to their life. Like maybe they have a story about, gosh, if I would have had this access during the pandemic, I could have done this, that, or the other thing. I have to run over to this location if I want to do this, that, or the other thing. I was in an interview for a job, the call got dropped, I couldn't get back on the internet, something like that. We see all kinds of stories, and it really ends up being very valuable for the county or the community to see all of those individual level stories that really do become quite compelling and can be used in a more provocative sort of project proposal or description of the problem. And then that's really the end. So again, we've got quite a bit of work that needs to be done. You'll go into your breakout rooms, you will work to get that introductory language all set up. There's a few counties already I'm meeting with that we're going to finalize those surveys for you, and really look forward to launching with you sometime in the next 2 weeks. And those surveys will be able to go for about 2 months, and really just looking forward to this journey with you. You're making a great choice doing this survey and getting that done. And this is the time to get the infrastructure survey done. We see some funding coming down in this next year, but really waiting any longer on this is not going to be a great choice. So getting the survey done can really set you up for really strong infrastructure plans and projects moving forward. And so just really want to congratulate you on that and look forward to getting that launched with you.